Approximately 3 years ago, I decided to do an investor deck. And before I actually sent it to any investor, I sent it to a friend of mine who was a marketing whiz. He's a senior executive in a firm. Within a few days, he got back and said, "Hey, Sukumar, there is no story in this deck." And Kumaran and I go, "Duh." The interesting thing is that I have been teaching storytelling techniques for more than 15 years now. The actual technique that I have been teaching has changed over time, but I have been teaching all the same, and I am also a firm believer in the idea of practice what you preach. So how come I didn't internalize the importance of storytelling in my own investor deck? Very curious, isn't it? So I went back to my favorite example of exercise. What were my barriers to 180 minutes of consistent exercise a week? Which is the fitness standard, right? If you had asked me that question, I would have given you any of these barriers. Painful, boring, hard, I don't enjoy it, there's no time, gym is not nearby, I'm not getting the results quickly, I'm not motivated, etc. So I had connected it already, these barriers, to limiting beliefs from cognitive psychology. These are beliefs that get in the way of things that we want to badly do. I had further connected this to the Eisenhower Covey matrix and showed to you all that we tend to procrastinate upon what we now call as the green zone tasks, high importance, low urgency tasks. Transformation, relationship building, storytelling, which we just covered. Anything that is strategic or long term in nature, we procrastinate because the limiting beliefs get in the way. Now the question is, what is the root cause of these limiting beliefs and why are we getting them to start with? That's what I was trying to investigate. And a few weeks ago I had a brain wave. I looked at the Eisenhower Covey matrix again and I realized that what we consider as high importance tasks are actually aspirational in nature. Yeah, exercise is important, fitness is important, I wanted to do it, so the aspiration is there. But if you ask me what was the importance in my subconscious mind, I would say that was zero. I decided to call it inner importance for want of a better term. Storytelling was aspirationally important, but I had not increase the inner importance of it. So how do I increase the inner importance of something? That's what I wanted to look at. Now I covered the reticular activating system and how it helps you spot important things like the cocktail party effect. It looks like the RAS is default programmed to yellow and red zone tasks because of our conditioning. So for example, as you're watching this video, if your phone rang, you would pick it up at least to see who it was. And even if it was a telemarketing call, you have still picked up the phone and you have now lost productivity because your attention has shifted. Now why did we do that? Because we have programmed our RAS to think of the phone ringing sound as important. Similarly, let's say you decide to do exercise and your inner importance of exercise is not that high enough and you see a food or you go something interesting going on TV, you would do that instead of going to the gym, right? So this is how the lack of programming of the RAS affects. Through another lucky accident, I had come across Professor B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits method in the year 2012. And I started simply with a tiny habit, 2 push-ups after I brush my teeth every morning. And that took me all of 2 seconds. All the excuses that I had in my head, it's boring, I don't have time, I am lazy, all that didn't stand a chance with this method. And within 355 days, I surprised myself by doing 50 push-ups at one go, which I did even today. In the last 7.5 years, I have done 106,725 push-ups. Now, if someone had told me that one day I will do 100,000 push-ups, I would have dismissed that as a cruel joke. But today it is a reality thanks to the Tiny Habits method. The beauty of this method is that I could do it right next to the hotel bed when I was traveling, or I have the unique record of doing it on an international flight. Because I was so worried of losing the habit. Previously, whenever I traveled internationally, or for that matter any travel, my fitness program will come crashing and burning, and it would be very hard for me to get back into it. So using this method, I slowly grew my habit to about 1.5 hours of exercise 6 days a week, which I did today also. So I am much fitter, I am 8 kilos lighter, and I am much happier thanks to Tiny Habits. By the 5th anniversary of my 50 push-ups 2017, I noticed that my procrastination has dramatically lowered itself. And I was trying to understand why and how that was happening. To show some interesting statistics about the brain. The conscious brain processes 40 packets of information per second. Now, how much do you think the subconscious processes? I fell out of my chair when I saw in his book that it processes 11 million packets of information per second. So you can say our conscious brain is like a snail and the subconscious is like the rocket ship. Whether or not you believe in these numbers, it's quite obvious that the subconscious is exponentially more powerful. I did some back of the envelope calculations. In the 3 days a week program, I calculated that we got about 192,000 learning units. But interestingly, the procrastination part, which is what we do more of, even if we say the thinking effort is just 0.1 effort unit, when it gets multiplied by the 11 million subconscious, you get to 1.1 million. Which is why it is harder for us to beat the procrastination thing. It is much, much stronger. It's a subconscious process. But interestingly, in the case of Tiny Habits, even though it is only 1 effort unit, it is a subconscious process, and hence it becomes 11 million. It becomes exponentially stronger than the procrastination. This is why I was able to do this better, and I decided to call this Tiny Grit. Now, I was talking to Kumaran about it, and he came up with the great idea that this procrastination thing should be called Tiny Demon. And you can see here that the Tiny Demon has learned how to ride the rocket ship, whereas we are still stuck in the conscious zone, 3 days a week and so on. So Tiny Habits helps us build this tiny. I decided to research this further, and at first I thought that marathoners and other people who do regular exercise would have more of Tiny Grit. I interviewed a lot of marathoners, friend of friends and so on, and it turns out that all of them procrastinate. That's what made me realize that the habit needs to be fine-grained or tiny. It looks like marathoners are building some other neural circuit and not Tiny Grit. Maybe they are building the grit, which is a bigger thing. I was taking things for granted, but using the gratitude prayer in my family and the gratitude circle in my firm, by repeatedly doing it in front of a group, I was able to change that behavior. Fitness, I am doing the Tiny Habits fitness, talking about it, working in group, so that, and journal it, that has improved. My eating was interesting. I used to think of myself as a foodie as well as having a sweet tooth. So that gave me the license to overeat food and also consume any number of sweets. So by journaling my weight, again by talking about this to groups and so on, I improved my behavior. Storytelling. In the last 2.5 years that I've been doing this TMT series, because I made a commitment to the audience in LinkedIn and Facebook that I'm doing it for, and I do it consistently every fortnight. Some days I stay up past midnight to get it done. So in my subconscious brain, the inner importance of storytelling has dramatically increased. So now whenever I make presentations, I think about storytelling. Because for me to do the TMT series in short order, in a 3-minute time, I needed to use storytelling. So that's how I have reprogrammed my RAS to increase the importance of storytelling. So the mantra to bear in mind, which I covered last time, is Vijayba. What I group journal about, I bring about. Now, luckily enough, our app Magic Spark is a group journaling app, and many of our mentees report similar improvements and changes in their mindset and so on.